Hi, everyone, and I want to welcome you all to my first of several second act interviews with phenomenal women who have made pivots in their lives to live the best version of themselves. My first guest is a phenomenal woman and a woman that I love. And I met her by joining her Facebook travel group for Black women who are over 45. I tell you, I joined this group and there were some women who were sharing their travel experiences abroad. And then many of them were living abroad. And I decided this is the group for me. I am going to be a part of this group. And the best part about that is you guys had a group travel to the Middle East, and it was called the Ultimate Middle East Journey. I saw you do the first one. I was like, oh, I want to go. Then you did the second one and the third one. I said, if they announce that there's going to be a fourth one, I'm not going to miss out. And the minute that you introduced that trip, the UMEJ number 4, I bought my ticket before I put my down payment in because I was going to go to this trip. I could not miss this tour with a group of phenomenal women. And so I was so glad that I waited till number 4 because there were only 8 people in the group and I was number 8. And I got to sit down with this lady and talk to her about what it is that she does. And she explained to me that she had spent her career in the medical field and she was retiring and making this 180 turn to do nothing that had to do with the medical field. And you were doing travel and she was actually doing personal development. And I was like, oh, this is somebody that I would love to actually be coached by. Once I found out you were a coach, I said, I want to be a coach. And instead of being coach, I was mentored into becoming a coach myself. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I am so glad to introduce to all of you my mentor and my friend, Franda Graves. Thank you and welcome to my second acts interview.
Thank you so much. What an awesome introduction. I loved hearing it. And I did not know that you bought your ticket before you.
I bought my airline ticket before I put my down payment down. I was going no matter what. I was going to make sure that I was there.
That's awesome.
Enough about me. I want to talk about you. You're in the UAE. You're in Dubai right now. So it's 7:05 a.m. here. And what does that make? It's 4 o'clock?
4:05 here. Yeah.
4 p.m. there. So thank you. We talk this way all the time. We figure out who's going to be in the morning, who's going to be in the evening. We're texting. If I text her at midnight, it's morning for you, but we get to communicate.
We work it out.
But, tell us, firstly, I just want to know, how did you go from a Southern girl, North Carolina, USA, to the Middle East? How did you get there?
Well, let me start by saying I'm still a Southern girl, and I bring grits with me every time I come back from the States. So, so I have my grits here. So I'm definitely still a Southern girl. I ended up actually, as you said, I worked in healthcare, and so as a respiratory therapist, and had worked for a very long time. I won't age myself by saying how long, but a really long time. In a hospital in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is where I'm from. And really just felt like it was time to just expand and to do something different. But at that point, different still meant still being in that box of healthcare. So sometimes we step out of our box, but we only take one foot out. So that was kind of the one foot. So I stayed in healthcare, but still decided that I wanted to do it someplace else. And at that time, a lot of respiratory therapists was going to Saudi Arabia. And it tried and true, many people have been there for several years. So I knew that it was a successful venture. And so, yeah, so I just put in the paperwork and next thing I know, I was on a plane for the first time for 27 hours. So yeah, so about halfway through, I did ask myself, what did you just do? But I've never wanted to turn, well, I won't say I've never wanted to turn back, but it has been a very pivotal point in my life, and I'm happy that I did it.
So how long did you work in Saudi Arabia?
I was there, I've been in the Middle East now for 15 years. So I was in Riyadh for 13 years, and I've been now in UAE for 2 years. It'll be 2 years in January, actually.
And that was your first plane ride? I never knew that.
That was my first plane ride out of the country. I had
Okay.
One little short one, but I was afraid to fly. So I was not one that was going to hop on a plane to go anywhere. And so one was a very short 1 hour flight. So that, you know, I felt like I had traveled the world at that point. And then the next one was 27 hours. So yeah, that was when I found out what traveling the world really means. So yeah.
So how was it? 13 years in Saudi Arabia. Give me some of your experiences.
It was life-changing.
Okay.
To be honest. The great thing about going anywhere when you know no one, for the most part, there was one person that I knew that had worked at the hospital where I worked before that was working in Saudi Arabia, but at that point she was away for 3 months. So it was still basically like coming in and not really knowing anyone. Just quick funny story. When I first got there, I had dreadlocks at that time as well, very long ones. And I saw this girl walking and she had dreadlocks as well. And I said, oh, excuse me, could you tell me who does your hair? And she looked at me and she goes, you do it yourself. You have nothing else to do. She's like, what else do you have to do? Do it yourself. Oh, okay. And then she said, and one thing she said to me, and this was only 3 weeks into being in Riyadh, she said, whatever you do while you're here, make sure that it's for yourself. And this was a stranger. I didn't know this woman. I did not know this one. We became friends later. But I didn't know her at that time at all. I just was asking her about her hair. But that stayed with me throughout the time that I was there, was just to take that is a wonderful opportunity to get to know yourself, your hours, time difference from everyone at home. And at that time, it was a closed country. So it's not like anyone could come and visit you or anything. So you're kind of there with you. So that really made it a lot more than I expected it to be, which is why I stayed so long.
So it was an introspective kind of therapy for yourself as well as working. Yeah,
very good word for that. Yeah, it was definitely an introspective time because you spend a lot of time alone when you're not at work. Okay. You spend a lot of time alone. So yeah, you spend a lot of time getting to know you.
So what did you learn about you?
At that time, I learned I had a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do just to make sure that the me that I was becoming was the me that I wanted to know. So yeah, so it was a lot of work.
Well, it looks like you
it wasn't a short journey. It was a 13-year journey. It was not like the first 2 years and then I got it. So yeah, it took a while.
But that's good. That's good. So now once you know yourself, then you can help other people to help themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
which is why I'm a coach.
That's why you're a coach. Now tell me the difference between once you spent 13 years in Saudi Arabia, then you moved to the UAE. So what's that like?
Vastly different. Of course, when I was in Saudi Arabia, it was still a closed country and women were not driving and women were not working that much. Women of the country, nationals. So as a matter of fact, right as I was leaving is when all of this changed.
So you could drive, but nationals could not?
No one could drive. Women were not driving at all. No.
Okay.
But as I was leaving, women were getting their driver's license and everything, which I had started to do just to have it because it was that first time and whatever, but waiting in line was, So I just decided not to. So the difference though, they're both Muslim countries, and we have to respect that, and we respect that all the time. And it's an easy respect. Maybe easier in the UAE because there's not as many strict restrictions of whatever. But the respect is still the same. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much that is as expected as it is in Saudi Arabia, but it's honored
Gotcha.
as it is in Saudi Arabia. So as you saw, when you came over. So that's one of the few differences. Of course, I drive here. Now, in Saudi Arabia, women can get their own apartments or whatever. When I was there, that was not allowed. So really, it was a big step for me. I felt like I was like moving from home, getting my first place. I had to buy furniture and all of that and pay electricity bills and that type of stuff. I had not done that in like 15 years. So wow. It was like going from living with your parents to living on your own.
So you really are you did a second act and this is your third act and you're still doing. So I think this is why I asked you to be first, because I think just doing things differently, just being open to doing something differently, how does that help somebody grow? How does that help us to grow instead of just doing the same thing over and over again?
Very good question. I think it helps us to grow because we plan so many things in life. Mm-hmm. If this were different, right now we have the pandemic going. If there wasn't a pandemic, I would travel all over the world. Mm-hmm. But if you're 40 years old, that's almost half your life that you could have been traveling already, but you haven't done it. But now the pandemic makes it easy for us not to grow or not to move out of the box that we've created for ourselves. So I think what happens when you take the chance, and because moving away from everything you know and love is really taking a chance on yourself. It's truly taking a chance on yourself and your survival abilities sometimes, especially if you're going to a place like I did, where the culture is extremely different than what I knew, especially at that time. Of course, the language was very different. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't like going into anything familiar, like absolutely nothing familiar, down to the plugs in the wall, down to simple things that the water. I mean, everything but there was nothing that was familiar except myself. And so being able to accept that instead of expect them to change for me, learning to adapt to the life, and then also being able to find myself in that process. Mm-hmm. And so
I'm really glad you took a chance on yourself, because you've encouraged people like me to take a chance on ourselves by watching you. You're leading by example, and so you never know who's watching, and you never know who's going to actually step out because they saw you step out of the box. Now I'm interested in a life that says, what box? I'm not even interested in the box at all, because I've been watching these women, and you are one of those women. Moving on to one of the other questions that I had is, I know that you're doing different things now. So what is it that you're doing? Tell us about Journey with Franda and the services that you provide.
Well, Journey with Franda, oddly enough, that wonderful caption that came with the travel and how that started and really, it actually was a term that first trip, the first group that came over, when it was supposed to be 3 people and turned into 34.
You guys had a lot of fun on that trip. That made me.
We had an amazing time. We had an amazing time.
It sold me.
It was absolutely, because as you know, that trip we went to Dubai as well. We came to UAE. I wasn't living here at that time. I was living in Riyadh still at that point. So I was kind of a tourist myself in some ways coming here. And then we also went to Egypt, where we went to Cairo, Aswan, Luxor. I don't think that trip we went to Alexandria. But that was part of that trip. So it was a 14-day trip with 34 people that don't know each other, going to a strange land, and the friendships that were created during that time they're still there now, you know. And I think that was the biggest part of it. And that particular trip, like the youngest person I think was. It's supposed to be for people over 45, but we had a couple of mothers that brought their daughters for various reasons. And then the oldest person there, I think, was 77 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. So having that, and what I saw in that, and the growth I saw in that of us as individuals, us as women, was that in the beginning, we were every woman for herself. I'm going here, I'm doing this. I'm whatever. And as time went on, you saw the younger ones making sure that the older ones, you know, were getting where they needed to go, were doing what they need, you know, making sure they were taken care of, checking on them, you know, are you okay? Just want to make sure you're okay. Anything you need? Oh, let me go get that for you. So we went back to something that we were raised to do, which was take care of those that we respect. And having that community. And it was not that way when we first got there, but as we moved on, and I don't mean a long period of time, maybe like one day when people are getting to know each other, but as we moved on, you just saw it build more and more. So we started in Dubai, and for that particular trip, and by the time we got to Egypt, the camaraderie and the community was just amazing. And so it was really, and having those two really kind of dichotomies of a Muslim world. You come to UAE, and of course, there's a lot of glamour, there's a lot of opulence, there's a lot of, you know, a lot of everything. You know, if it's the largest of anything, it's going to be here. So, that's, you know, sure. Yeah, so we have a lot. And then to go to Egypt, where a lot is different in that there, a lot is that camaraderie between the people there, between the people and you, learning about the history and all of that. So it was a different, and seeing the Muslim world in a different view. From here, that's very, very open, to going there, which is a little bit more traditional, for lack of a better word. So yeah, so it was very, very interesting to have that type of group. And that's why every trip now is Dubai and Egypt. You know, if you do one, I want you to do both.
Yeah. Yep. So you can see the difference.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
Well, so Journey with Franda Travel, of course, is we're still doing we're getting trips together again because Dubai is open. We have Expo coming up. So there's a lot of things that will be going on here in the UAE. Egypt is open up again. And we definitely want to make sure that, I definitely want to make sure that my part of helping whatever little piece that I can do with the economy there, to be able to do that. Because here, it's not really about, you know, building the economy and tourism. They have so many other things. But then there's also Journey with Franda, personal development and recovery coaching. So the Journey with Franda can be a physical journey or a spiritual, emotional, internal journey. So I didn't change the name when I moved into coaching. I didn't create another name. I thought about it, but the essence of both was still the same. So I just kept the name.
Yep, it fits. It fits. Absolutely fits. And that's the way, I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
So it's one umbrella. You get travel and your coaching, your personal development, and you can actually do all of that in one setting.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm hoping to do like a retreat, actually, hopefully either in Morocco or in Jordan, where we do combine those two things, and maybe even here to go out to one, because there's so many places in the UAE that people rarely go to see on a regular tour. So many beautiful places. There's mountains, and people rarely think, oh, it's just desert. No, there's mountains, and there's, you know, I'm right at the Gulf. I'm right at the Persian Sea. So, you know, there's ocean, there's sea. So there's so much to see here and so much to do that's not about the big buildings and the largest of everything. So just to be able to do that. So to have a retreat or something like that is something that I'm looking at as well.
I'm there. You know, I'm there. I'm coming.
Check, signed up.
That's right. You're lucky I didn't just stop so I can get my airline ticket right now. So as soon as you announce, I will be there. I'm ready to go. We've been sitting here in the house for almost 8-9 months? 10 months actually. And wow. Is it 10 months? Yeah, something like that. And I'm ready to go. So you know I'm on board. I'm excited about
I'm ready to go too, actually. I went out of Dubai for a little while.
That's why we're going to switch. You're going to come here and I'm going to...
Okay. Our lives, and sometimes we take them for granted.
Yeah, everybody knows that I am a fan of Maya. I never got a chance to meet her. And I call her Mother Maya because she has served as sort of a grandmother / mother for me without even meeting her, because I read all of her books. I was kind of living that kind of life. Just do what you feel. And everybody's looking at you strange, like you're actually going to pack up your 4-year-old and move to Illinois so that you can finish a degree when you can finish one here. I'm like, yeah, I only have 8 months. If we have to live in a car and eat hot dogs, that's what we'll do. If Maya could go to Egypt, why can't I just go here? Why can't we just do this for 8 months? And so she's just shown us, like, just step out on faith and do. So I'm glad to hear that you're a Maya fan as well. And then definitely the other thing that I ask everyone, because, you know, I'm a big proponent of community and how we got here. Black women, how we got to where we are. We didn't get here alone. Somebody's blood, sweat, and tears are the reason that we can live the life that we want to live, that we can just pick up and move to the Middle East or just visit the Middle East. So I always ask, on whose shoulders do you stand?
I think, like, I know a lot of women go way back in history, and there's so many many women in history whose shoulders that we can stand on. But I think for me, that my two superpowers, and I call these two women my superpowers all the time. My superpowers, which would be my mother. Well, actually 3. I have 3 superpowers: my mother, my grandmother, and my best friend Audrey. In so many different ways, they were my superpowers, and so many different ways. Each one of them was always the encourager. They were always in different ways. Like my grandmother, you know, she had her things, and my mother had her things, and Audrey had hers. But each and every one of them, for whatever reason, especially my grandmother in her time, especially for whatever reason, decided boxes were not working. Boxes were not working. So even if if they were in the box for whatever, you know, because of the time, because of the culture, whatever, the box that they were creating for those that were around them, those that they were raising, and with Audrey, those that were her friends and those she cared about and loved, was always that of an encourager. Don't just stay here. Don't just stop here. And so those shoulders, because each one of them, yes, they've all passed on, but each one of them the power that they give, and the power that they it's not, I won't even say power they left behind, it's the power that they give and the power that they still give. Yeah. So when I want to lay down and say, you know, and I have those times, but when I want to lay down and say I'm going to do nothing, I hear at least one of those three voices going, you best get up. It's according to which one is talking. If it's my mother, you need to get up, girl. If it's my grandmother, you best get up. And if it's Audrey, it's like, girl, please. But each one of those voices, they keep you going and they make you dream. And I think that's what we look at when we look at the shoulders we stand on. Their dreams. Yep. Their dreams. Yep. And this is. So whose shoulders do you stand on?
Oh, I stand on several shoulders. Of course, my mother and my grandmothers, but my paternal grandmom, I spent a lot of time with her. So I know that I owe a great deal of gratitude to her because she was a griot. She told her family story to me in a way that I never knew that I was learning my family history. And so she was the link between the past and my future. And I watched this lady who had 7 children give of herself to her friends and her family. And she didn't live in the box either. She didn't do the traditional thing. She knew the word back and forth as far as the Bible is concerned, but she didn't go to church. And whenever you were sick, she went out in her backyard and got bare grass roots and and she made some cough medicine. Why don't I know what a bare grass root looks like? Now, my dad was making it too, but I didn't. She did all of those kind of things. She put medicine together, and that was all from her past. Everything that she learned, she brought it into the house. And she was the child caregiver and the cook in her family of 14 siblings. Wow. Because she couldn't work in the field. They owned land and they had a farm, but she couldn't work in the field. She would faint. And so that was her job. So I guess she had all of this time to cultivate and learn to teach and care for children. So by the time I came along, my dad is 38 years older than me. So by the time I came along, she had cared for many a child. And so it was just second nature to her. And so if I have to say, who do I stand on? It definitely is Carnell Newman and my mother, Ada Newman.
And you know, the interesting thing that you just said, that's the one thing that we've lost in our culture are our stories. We've lost the stories of our past so that we know the stories of our future.
I'm working to change that.
Yeah.
I'm working to change that. But that's another.
We all need to know our stories. We need to understand our stories.
Yes, we
so
do.
This is
so
awesome that you're doing this
forward.
second act. This is awesome.
Second acts, and you're an awesome first guest. So how can we learn more about you? Where can we find out more about you?
Well, you know, I have 2 websites. One is for travel, which is www.journeywithfranda.com. And then one is for coaching, which is www.frandagraves.com. I'm also on Facebook, Franda Graves, personal development and recovery coach. I'm also teaching coaching. So if anyone wants to take a coaching program, they're absolutely welcome to join. I think I do okay with the teaching, huh?
You do awesome. You are an awesome teacher. And don't forget, I just want people to know that I'm in the coaching program, and not only do you learn to coach, but you learn to be coachable. And so you're getting something on both ends as a coach and as a client. So I thoroughly recommend it.
Awesome. I like that.
I thoroughly recommend it. Is there anything else that you'd like to let us know, or your Phenomenal Speaks? When will we know more about that?
I'm hoping to launch Phenomenal Speaks by December 12th. That is my target date right now. Okay. To start that off, and just there's a lot of things we'll be doing with that, but basically Phenomenal Speaks is just about giving voice. It's not just voice for females. It's going to be females and males. It's not about people that have a lot of money. It's going to be people that are struggling financially, but still feeding their families. It's going to be women and men that have been single parents. So basically what it is taking a single voice in a single whatever phase of life. And it's not about totally sharing, but it's also about giving.
Okay.
And that's the biggest thing that we'll be doing with Phenomenal Speaks. And I'm just really looking forward to having you as one of our voices.
So we can look for you on Facebook and on your website to
Yes.
get more information about everything that you're doing.
Yes, please do.
Thank you for joining me. And
Thank
now
you.
it is almost early evening for you. And my day is just getting started, but I thank you for your time. And I look forward to being a part of Phenomenal Speaks and all of the tours that you're doing, whatever you're doing, I'm there.
That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you so much for doing this. And we will talk soon.
Yes, take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.